and the crummy vermin poured out of the park like a line of ants and surrounded the body. No one noticed him. There were no keening sirens, no, "Dude, did you see what happened?" Nothing. After a few minutes, the killer stood up and, with his hands in his jacket pockets, left the park and headed home. There would be other nights. One of these times, he was bound to get lucky. Chapter 2. On Monday morning, Assistant District Attorney Yuki Castellano was in the San Francisco DA's conference room, sitting across the mahogany table from a boyishly handsome young man. Yuki was building a sexual abuse case that she thought, if brought to trial, could change the face of rape prosecution on a national scale. An executive at a top creative San Francisco ad agency had allegedly raped an employee at gunpoint, and Yuki was determined to try the case. After she quit her job and spent a year at the nonprofit Defense League, District Attorney Leonard Red Dog Parisi had asked her to come back and try an explosive case as his second chair. But they had suffered a humiliating loss. Now, Yuki wanted very much to have a win for herself, for Parisi, and for the city. She asked,
"Mark, can we get you anything? Sparkling water? Coffee?"
"No thanks. I'm good." Mark Christopher was a television commercial producer with the ad shop and the victim in the case, claiming that Brianna Hill, the head of the agency's TV production department and his boss, had assaulted him. The sex crimes detail of SFPD's Southern Station had investigated Christopher's complaint and found convincing enough evidence to bring the case to the DA's office. After reviewing the evidence and meeting with Christopher, Yuki had asked Parisi to let her take the case to the grand jury. Parisi said, "Yuki, this could be a glue trap. You're going to have to convince a jury that this kid could keep it up with a loaded weapon pointed at his head, that a woman could rape him. You really want to do this? Win or lose, this case is going to stick to you." She said,
"Len, I'm absolutely sure he was raped, and I can prove it. If we get an indictment, I want to run with this."
"Okay," Len said dubiously. "Give it your best shot." In Yuki's opinion, non-consensual sex was rape, irrespective of gender. Women raping men rarely got traction unless the woman was a school teacher or in another position of authority, and the victim was a child or, more commonly, a teenage boy. In those instances, the crime had more to do with the age of the victim than a presumed act of brutality by a woman. In this case, Brianna Hill and Mark Christopher were about the same age, both in their late 20s. Christopher was Hill's subordinate at the ad shop, true, but he wasn't accusing her of sexual harassment at work. He claimed that Hill had threatened to shoot him if he didn't comply with a sadistic sex act. Would Hill really have pulled the trigger? For legal purposes, it didn't matter. It mattered only that Mark Christopher had believed she would shoot him. As Len Parisi had said, it was going to be a challenge to convince a jury that this confident young man couldn't have fought Hill off, that he'd maintained an erection at gunpoint against his will, and that he'd been forced to have sex with a woman he had dated and had sex with many times before. But Yuki would tell Christopher's story. He'd said no, and Hill had violated him anyway. Yuki had seen the proof. The grand jury would have to decide if there was enough evidence to support that version of events. Once this case went to trial, win or lose, Mark would be known for accusing a woman of raping him. If Brianna Hill was found guilty, she would go to jail, and the face of workplace sexual harassment would change. Chapter 3. Glass walls separated the conference room from the hallway, with its flow of busy, noisy, and nosy foot traffic. Yuki ignored those who were sneaking looks at the broad-shouldered, dark-haired agency producer slumping slightly in his chair. He was clearly wounded, describing what he claimed had transpired 2 months before, and seemed very vulnerable.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.